Okay, so as we all know, in the 1990s, when it came to Marvel Comics, especially for Marvel, the top two dogs at that time were the X-Men and Spider-Man. And so when it came to Marvel, they tried their best to push out all these different books when it came to those two different properties, especially for the X-Men. If you think about it, you had like 5 different X teams, you had some solo books, but occasionally you would also get limited series as well that would focus on different things going on with the X-Men, like for example, X-Men versus the Brood. Now, this was a 2-part limited series that came out in 1996. And honestly, I kind of feel like this storyline could have been told in one of the main X-Men books, Uncanny or just X-Men, but at the same time, it's still a very great story to read because it kind of brings a whole new idea about the Brood. Because remember, when it comes to the Brood, they are this alien race, this insect alien race that travels across the universe. Now, they have two goals: to take over different parts of the universe, but to also raise up their numbers as well. Now, that last part is really important. And the reason why, because how do they raise up their numbers? Well, as they go over to new planets, they place eggs inside different people. Once those eggs do hatch, you slowly turn into a brood, adding to their numbers. Now, in every single nest across the universe, each one has their own queen. Now, the queens are really important, but the main person in charge of the entire race is known as the Empress. Now, for the Empress, their main goal is to make sure that all the queens keep their nests going to continue to add in the numbers of the Brood across the universe. Now, here's the thing. The Brood, they share a hive mind, so all their minds should be connected. And for the Empress, it realized one of the queens is no longer trying to stay connected. Matter of fact, that queen is beginning to break away. It's kind of like the human mind is now taking over the mind of the Brood. And that right there should not be happening at all. And so for the Empress, is going to send out the firstborn, these best assassins in the Brood, to deal with this queen. Now, before we're able to kind of figure out who the queen is that's breaking away, you did have the Empress tell the queen through their minds being connected to one another. But that queen, their mind was connected to Jean Grey. And so for Jean Grey, she heard the entire conversation, but she also realized that one of the Brood is breaking away from the hive mind. How is that even possible? And so you have Jean Grey call over to Charles Xavier. Now, here's the thing, because for Cyclops and Jean Grey, they were away with Jean Grey's family. And so it's now Jean Grey calling Charles back at home saying, hey, Charles, this is what's happening, and we should get the X-Men involved. And so just like that, you have Charles say, don't worry, I got this. X-Men, come to me now. Iceman, Storm, Cannonball, Wolverine, Beast, Bishop, they're all going to be involved in the storyline now. Now, for the X-Men, some of them have not really dealt with the Brood at all, because when it came to Chris Claremont, when he had brought them into this reality or Marvel Comics, back then it was the new X-Men that came out of Giant Size X-Men. So Wolverine, Nightcrawler, Kitty Pryde, not Kitty Pryde, she came later on, but she still was new X-Men. Colossus, those characters right there. I want to say like only Cyclops, who was one of the old X-Men, had dealt with the Brood at that time. Now, over time, you had other members still being able to meet the Brood, but again, not everybody. Now, for Bishop, from his timeline, he heard about the Brood, but he also heard about different factions about the Brood as well. Now, that part right there will become very important for later parts of this storyline. Now, let's go ahead and shift our focus over to the queen that's on Earth. Now, this queen, her name is Hannah Conover, and her husband is William. Now, both these characters had appeared in an earlier storyline that was written by Chris Claremont in, I want to say, Uncanny X-Men 232 up to 234, a 3-part storyline. Now, in that 3-part storyline, you have the Brood being able to make it over to Earth, and of course, lay some eggs in some people who fought against the X-Men because, well, they were turned into the Brood. Now, when it came to Hannah, she was labeled as a queen, which means it's her goal to build a nest on Earth. And so when it came to Hannah, she went around placing eggs in different people. But then over time, she kind of realized this is wrong. Now, what seems to happen was that she kept seeing her husband's sermons, and she believed the power of God has spoke to her and brought her back into reality. Now, the reason why I say back in reality, because when it came to Hannah, once she had the egg hatch, she was part of the brood hive mind. But apparently, Hannah's mind came back into the picture and pushed away the brood side of her. And so it's her kind of feeling bad because now she realized what she has done wrong. Now, for William, he has no idea what's going on with his wife at all. But he does realize that, like, hey, you know what? She needs help, but I can't help her. She won't let me help her at all. Now, the person who turned Hannah into a brood was a character known as Josie Thomas. Now, for Josie, she's also a brood. She got word that the Empress is sending down the firstborn. Now, the firstborn are a group of assassins in the brood organization, and their main goal is to do what they are told to do. But once they do finish their mission, they're supposed to die. And so when they do arrive, they tell Josie, we are here to kill off Hannah, but all her kids as well that she had made on Earth. But on top of that, once they do finish their jobs, they will then kill one another. Now, after all of that, you then have Josie ask them like, okay, cool, change into your human form. Because if y'all walk around like that, you'll stand out and people might get involved. For the firstborn, they don't shapeshift. They're kind of like, no, we are staying in this form right here. But also, if anybody sees us, we'll just kill them off as well. Now, for Cyclops and Jean Grey, they do locate Hannah. They're like, oh, she's right there. Let's go talk to her. But the thing is, for Hannah, she's leaving. She's heading back into town to kind of get away. Now, for William, he's kind of worried about Hannah. But then out of nowhere, two people appear. And they say, hey, man, don't worry. We'll watch over her. Now, these two people, yes, they may look older than Hannah. But the thing is, they're also part of her brood nest, which means they are just two brood people who are pretending to be their human hosts. But on top of that, they're technically her children. And so their goal right now is to protect their queen. And so yes, they do take her in a town for a tad bit. Now, for the firstborn, they do locate Hannah. They're like, cool, she's right there. But before we go after her, we have to kill off everybody who is connected to her, which also means Josie, because Josie was the one that turned Hannah into a brood. And so you have the firstborn, kill her off just like that. There goes Josie. With her death, they can now focus on Hannah now. And so then after that, they head straight over to Hannah. But here's the thing, because you do have those two people who came with Hannah try to protect her. That's their job, to protect their queen. But the thing is, the firstborn, they are top dogs in the whole entire organization of the brood. Like, they're not something you could take down so easily. And so just like that, they kill off the two people that came with Hannah. And it does look like at first, like Hannah is going to die. But then at the very last second, the X-Men do arrive. Now, the last few pages of the first chapter is really more of us kind of focusing on the battle between the X-Men and the Brood. And there are two things I do want to bring up. The first is that even with all the different abilities the X-Men have, they're still struggling to fight against the firstborn. Like, there's just two of them, and those two are taking on the entire X-Men team all at once. Now, the second thing I do want to focus on is Wolverine. And here's the reason why, because around this time in Marvel Comics for Wolverine, he was more savage, more feral. And the reason why, because we had learned that apparently when it came to Magneto ripping off the adamantium off his bones, it kind of restarted a whole process in Wolverine. So apparently by Charles Xavier, when it came to Wolverine, when he first gained his mutant ability, he was supposed to slowly turn into a wild beast. But thanks to Weapon X putting on the adamantium on his bones, it stopped that process. But thanks to Magneto getting rid of the adamantium, that process has started up all over again. Now, there is a special reason why I'm kind of bringing this up right now for this storyline. And that special reason is because, okay, for Logan, he was the only person so far we have seen in Marvel Comics begin to get rid of a brood egg that was placed inside his body. And the only reason why, because of the healing factor. But for Logan, as one of the few people who have fought against the brood, he's kind of like, hey, if she's a brood, they have to die. Now, later on, more of her kids appear because their main goal is to protect her. And so she's kind of wondering what to do here, like to allow Wolverine to kill her off or to have her children protect her. But at the same time, for Jean Grey with the rest of the X-Men, they kind of want to use her to kind of figure out how she was able to break away from the brood, because then that might give them more information about the brood and how to deal with them. But right now, she's kind of wondering, like, it's really worth her to be alive, because now you are talking of the possibility of more and more brood coming after her to kill her, the people she turned to broods, but also to kill off her husband as well. Now, as we get into the second issue, we're really picking up with William again. Now, for William, it's him kind of meeting go with police officers, because the police did arrive at the scene earlier when it came to the X-Men fighting against the brood in the city. And so for the police, they're kind of like, hey, William, do you know why we saw Hannah with the X-Men? Now, for William, they were saved by the X-Men back in that storyline that Chris Claremont wrote a long time ago. So for him, he's kind of like, well, if the X-Men got involved, then most likely Hannah was in trouble. Because for the X-Men, they protect everybody. And so you have William walk away, but now he's kind of wondering, like, what's going on with my wife? Like, why in the world is she getting involved with the X-Men? And really, after you transition back over to the X-Men, it's really more now seeing the X-Men kind of wondering, like, okay, cool, what should we do with her? Like, should we go ahead and just kill her off? Now, for Wolverine, he's down with the idea. But for most of the X-Men, they're kind of like, no, let's just use her as a way to study her, to learn more about her. Now, you have her saying, like, no, I want you guys to stay away from me. Like, she's kind of thinking of the possibility of letting the firstborn kill her off. And so she does call in her children to basically protect her, to fight against the X-Men. Now, for Wolverine, they also have to die because, again, his past with the brood. But for Jean Grey, she realized that these broods are not technically hostiles. Like, they're right now fighting against the X-Men, but only because she told them to allow her enough time to get away. And so now for the X-Men, they're kind of like, okay, listen, we gotta fight Hannah, break up into multiple groups, but at the same time, watch out for Logan, because for Logan, he's really down with the idea of just killing her off. But as we get over to Hannah, for Hannah, she does regroup with her children. But here's the problem though, because as soon as they do regroup, more of the firstborn appear. Now, when they do appear, it's kind of like a slaughterhouse, because you do have all her children try their best to protect her, but they can't, because they're nowhere on the level of the firstborn. And so they're getting slaughtered. And while they're getting slaughtered, she kind of realized, okay, you know what? Enough is enough. Everyone's dying because of me. What if they kill me off and leave everyone else alone? And so that's her goal, to allow them to go ahead and kill her off. But the problem is the X-Men arrive once again to protect her. Now for Logan, his main goal is to actually protect her now. But the only reason why, because of Jean Grey, his love for Jean Grey. And so he's trying his best to fight against the firstborn, but the problem is, again, they're too powerful. Now, the rest of the X-Men do arrive. Like I said though, they're just having a hard time taking these guys down. Now, the battle can be seen outside the city. And so for William, he's kind of like, what's ever happening over there is most likely involving my wife as well. So let me go ahead and head over to make sure that she is okay. But really, as we get back over to the X-Men, it's really more of us just seeing Jean Grey realize that, well, they're here for Hannah. And so you have Hannah tell Cannonball, hey, listen, grab her and get the heck out of here, which he does just like that. But here's the thing, because right after you do have the firstborn leave, you didn't have the X-Men kind of discuss what to do with Hannah once again. But for Logan, once again, is him saying she should die. Now for Cyclops, he's kind of like, no, you know the X-Men, we do things in an honorable way. What you're saying right now is not the way the X-Men truly work. But for Logan, it's kind of like, but yeah, here's the thing. We have no idea what could happen down the road if we don't go ahead and kill her off now. Now, for William, we do see that he is grabbed by the firstborn just like that, and they're planning to use him as bait to bring Hannah out to hopefully get her and kill her off. And once they do kill her off, well, of course, they're going to kill him off as well. And so for Hannah, she knows that her husband has been taken. And so you have Hannah go ahead and change into her brood form to knock out Cannonball, to go where the firstborn is at, to hopefully give herself up, to hopefully save the life of her husband. Now, this kind of leads into the ending of the storyline because you do have Hannah arrive, right? When she does arrive, she shows William her true form, her brood form, to kind of give him a better idea of what's going on with her. Now, her main goal is to fight against the firstborn as a way to at least save his life. But the problem is, again, the firstborn, they're top-notch assassins. And so they were able to take her out very easily. But that's the problem right there, because now they both might die here together. And so right when it seems like they're about to die, you have the X-Men arrive. Now, once you do have the X-Men arrive, they got a game plan on how to get rid of the firstborn, but to make sure the brood would not send any more after Hannah. You see, for Iceman, he can freeze her, slow her heartbeat down. But for the brood, they'll believe that she is officially dead. But in reality, she's just frozen in time. And so for Iceman, that's what he does. He freezes her. And so with her being frozen, now for the brood, the firstborn, they believe that she is dead. And so let's not forget, for the firstborn, after they kill off their targets, they kill off one another. And so you have the firstborn go ahead and say, well, our mission is done here. We are now going ahead and kill ourselves. And they do. But here's the thing, because now with the brood believing that she is dead because she's no longer connected to the brood hive mind, they're kind of like, okay, cool. Now we can go ahead and take her back over to the mansion to kind of study her. Now for William, he hates the idea of letting his wife go, but at the same time understands that if there is a possibility the X-Men can find a way to help her, then why not go ahead and allow them to take her away? And so this is where we're going to end today's comic book video. So please leave me a like down below and subscribe. But guys, see y'all next time. Later.